I'd like to take you through the problems that I faced in cloud computing exam with wording or presentation of question or option of corresponding slide or the concept question. In midterm, there was a question which says three evolutions we have discussed that enable progress to service-oriented computing. Now, evolutions were discussed of process and application evolution, middleware platform level evolution, and infrastructure layer level evolution. Evolutions of all of these layers were discussed. So, it would have been more understandable if it was like evolutions of which three aspects were discussed to arrive at service oriented computing. When it says just the evolutions that we've discussed, we have gone through so many evolutions, like we've gone through the industrialization of service. I mean, these are also evolutions that are being talked about over here. So, to frame the question in a way which is not directly reaching to the answer expected is kind of confusing, and I wish it was not like that. In midterm, again, there were plenty of questions based on this diagram, which is service consumer, service product is over here, and service registry is over here. And this is the bind, and this is find arrow, and this is the publish arrow. Now, the questions were based on this one, and we can only make out from the service consumer that is written over here. Everything else is ABCD marked. So, arrows are the only way to guess that it has been rotated. This thing has gone over here in all of the questions. Now, I wish if the arrows were marked in red, it brings our attention directly to it. Otherwise, it is only human to mentally relate the known diagram to the image discussed in the class, and that is what we based our answers on. I mean, somewhere in the back of my mind, it occurs to me that maybe there's something problem with the placement of arrows, or maybe there's something wrong with it, and I go on marking the answers. If the arrows are the only way, why aren't they marked in red? I mean, if it is being tested on the rotation of the diagram being understood by the class, I wish they were marked in red. I wish it was highlighted loud and clear that the rotation has been done. Otherwise, the only people who got it correct must have been the ones who have gone through the previous question papers, or who are aware of this kind of twist coming to their way. I mean, if you're not aware, it's impossible to gauge it within the limited few seconds that we have to answer the questions. Another question in midterm was the relationship between cloud computing and SOA. Now here all of the above option is correct, but SOA, one of the options says SOA provided a building block to cloud computing. All through the class we understood that SOA is the umbrella and cloud computing is one instance under that umbrella. So when our option says SOA provided building block to cloud computing, my imagination was immediately to consider what is being said over here is that SOA is providing an element to build cloud computing, whereas I understand that that is not what was being discussed. The concept here that was being said was that how cloud computing is based on service oriented architecture, and that is understandable, but to use a wording which says provided a building block, I mean it's obvious to be taken that it is wrong, but it's just, it can be taken both ways. I understand the concept, but I also interpreted it in a wrong way. I mean, I wish the wordings were more taken care of, and they were more relatable to what we did in class, and not, played around with our marks in future. Desktop virtualization or desktop cloud means. Now, in class, I pointed out this question in the after class discussion with professor, and he did draw out the desktop virtualization that I interpreted in the question as the virtual desktop being used on desktops, like in Mac and many other desktops, laptops. We can provide a virtual environment that can enable the switch off operating system. So he did draw the diagram. He did say that yes, that is how it is. There will be an OS and there will be an hypervisor, and then on that hypervisor there will be an operating system. That is the desktop virtualization, or virtualization of desktop, that we discussed. But he insisted that this question is about desktop cloud, which he wanted to say that delivering the operating system and applications to multiple desktop from a virtualized server. First thing, this concept was not discussed in class, and second thing, I mean, it is confusable to say desktop virtualization. I went online and I checked various articles, and it directly says, wherever you even search desktop cloud, it does mention that do not confuse desktop virtualization with desktop virtualization. The desktop virtualization that we are referring to talks about server-based computing, but desktop virtualization also refers to running virtual machine on desktop systems using such desktop virtualization solutions such as Microsoft Visual, Virtual PC, VMware Fusion, parallel desktops, etc. Now he did point out, but he doesn't feel the need to, change marks or agree that yes, this concept also applies to the option that you selected. Okay, let us consider both the options. Maybe he would have considered it had it been, some other person saying it in a more tone that he likes to reciprocate to. Maybe I was too direct. Maybe I just said no. It is desktop virtualization is considered running a hypervisor virtualization layer on the desktop instead of the server. But I don't know why it was not considered. There was another question 11, commoditization of infrastructure really meant. Now this one was again discussed in the after class discussion, and there was a very elaborate discussion that I did with professor along with everybody else who was there. And again, it is so vague that commoditization of infrastructure really means. To be taken in the layman manner, I mean, it means that the infrastructure had been commoditized, that it could that infrastructure could be accessed without actually buying the infrastructure via cloud, be it anything, be it servers, be it storage, or be it networks. Everything's virtualization was possible, and everything virtualized was accessible from the cloud. But professor did not want to agree on the double meaningness of this question, or possibility of different answers. He insisted that it is certain elements such as x86 servers that have been commoditized, and given the element of commoditization and alternatives in the infrastructure, configuration becomes more important. Now this is possibly related to one of the case, but I wish it was mentioned over here. Commoditization of infrastructure interpreted from that case really means. Then I think going on to these answers becomes obvious, and these are the target answers. But if it is in a vague term like this, where you just have to access what it really means, I just don't understand why is it not all infrastructure has been commoditized. Now in final exam, there was another question which was saying the commonly cited downside of layered architecture pattern that must be mitigated is. Now I went back to the slide which listed the advantages and disadvantages. So it lists them like what layering pattern provides and what it doesn't provide. The next thing says layers help in bringing quality to server and multiple value to business. So I'm assuming that the points put down after saying this positive statement should be mostly positive. It should be about bringing quality or multiple value to the business, and that's how they are. They are modifiability, portability, etc. And somewhere down here it says runtime overhead of the layers can be mitigated by sophisticated compile time facilities. Now, to me it looks like the ability to mitigate runtime overheads using compile, link, and load facilities seems like a plus point. And because any layered architecture or even cloud computing as a layered architecture is getting so popular and is being extensively used, so I thought that the runtime overhead of layered pattern is not so much of significance. I mean, it nowhere actually highlights it as an advantage or a disadvantage. I mean, I wish they were actually separated as advantages or disadvantages. Question 55, it says diminished control over security features of a shared physical network is offset by providing. Now, diminished means reduced control, which may imply ability to provide rack level security or may not. I mean, it just nowhere clearly mentions. So, because the shared physical network is being talked about over here, and it's we're talking about its offsetting its the security. So using rack level security becomes an answer choice as well. The more appropriate wording would have been like, with no control over physical security features of shared physical network, the compromised security can be offset by. So that zeroes on the overlay network. That doesn't leave any chance for rack level security. So these are all the 10 questions that I wanted to go through, which I felt had a wording problem somewhere related to them. And 10 does not make 32, Professor Gurvinder Ahluwalia. Please stop misterming me in mails.